Even though tax filing season is behind us, unless you filed for an extension, you know the tax man cometh again next year. So what should your strategy be to make sure that you don't owe a lot or that you don't get too much back? Financial expert Marshall Clay with the Welch Group joins us to explain. I know that probably caught some people off guard. Mike, what do you mean? I want that big check from the federal government, but you really don't, do you? Explain.
Right. It feels like it's found money, but it's really the government giving you your money back. And so, several years ago when interest rates were at 0%, it really didn't make that much of a difference. But now, you have interest rates at 5%. So, if you received a $5,000 refund, I know it feels good at the moment, but the reality is you gave the government a $5,000 interest-free loan. So that's not a good thing.
So if you adjust what the government is taking out of your check, you could really break even, which is what you want to do. All right, so what should people be mindful of in terms of deductions if they are eligible?
Yeah, so particularly when we're talking about charitable giving, I think there's a big understanding, it's very important for our viewers to understand the difference between standard deduction and itemized deduction. So a standard deduction is the default amount of money. It's a lump sum amount of money that each taxpayer can deduct against their taxes at the end of the year. So if you're a single filer in 2024, that's $14,600. It doubles if you're a couple married filing jointly. So that's the default amount that each person can deduct against their taxes. Now, there's some itemized or some items, the itemized deductions, that if you add up those itemized deductions and they exceed the standard deduction, you can actually use the itemized deduction. So it's important for you to understand the distinction there, and one of those itemized deductions is charitable giving. So when you're thinking about giving to charity, you want to understand, am I falling in the standard deduction category or the itemized deduction category? Because it can be very frustrating if someone's giving to charity, they think they're receiving a tax benefit, but what they're really filing under is the standard deduction.
And the charitable giving, obviously that's a win-win. It can help a worthy cause, but also help you on the tax end. But what are the thresholds? What are the limits people need to be looking out for?
Yeah, so I mean, you can give as much as you want to charity. Oftentimes there's some limits on how much you can deduct in a single year, so our viewers definitely want to get with their accountant if they're giving really large amounts of money. But I think when you're thinking about giving to charity, obviously we talked about the standard deduction and the itemized deduction, but there's some ways, if you're talking about giving appreciated stock on an ongoing basis, that's a way that whether or not you fall in the standard deduction category or the itemized category, you still get the benefit of avoiding the capital gains tax. So that's a very important thing to understand. If you're very committed to giving to charity, you can actually accelerate your giving. So say you're committed to giving $5,000 a year to charity, which is a very generous gift, and you have the ability to maybe accelerate that for 5 years, that can help you launch into that itemized deduction category in that single year, which gives you a larger tax benefit. And then we've talked about this before, but if you're over 70 and a half and you're about to come into that required minimum distribution category, you can actually give the required minimum distribution or a portion of your required minimum distribution. It's actually excluded from your income, and so that's one benefit, and then you can still fall under the standard deduction. So there's a number of different ways that you can give efficiently to charity, but all boils down to understanding where you fall in that deduction category.
All right, a lot of important things there to keep in mind. And Marshall Clay from the Welch Group, we do appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.